Okay, it is 5:46 p.m. and it is August 28th, 2020. Welcome everybody to the School Board of Manatee County. I'd like to ask if you have a cell phone that you please silence your cell phones now. And with that, let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we're going to move forward with our first recognition, which is Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, superintendent. And we do have some special guests with us tonight, and it's great to when our support departments and employees do something that's special and worth recognition, and we like to recognize them for their efforts and their work as well. And tonight, I just want to let you know that earlier this month, the School District of Manatee County's Finance Department received a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended on June 30th, 2019. The ASBO Certificate of Excellence recognizes school districts that have met the program's high standards for financial reporting and transparency. And this is a quote from the ASBO International Executive Director, David Lewis. He said, "The COE's mission is to promote and recognize excellence in financial reporting, specifically through a district's CAFR. The CAFR informs stakeholders about the financial and economic state of the school district, making it an important communications tool for building trust and engagement between the school district and the community." And our finance department won this Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. I want to introduce the Director of Finance for the School District of Manatee County, Tammy Taylor. Tammy would like to say a few words.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Saunders. Due to COVID-19, we couldn't have our full staff here to be recognized, so I brought a few members. We have a total staff of 19 who have all contributed to this award. Everyone has a place and a part to get us this award every year. We have received the award for 14 years in a row, and we strive hard to make sure that we do everything to have proper reporting to receive that award. So I have with me here Yvonne Nelson, who's our school accounting specialist, Wendy Gyron, who is our accounting manager, and Janet Clausey, who is our senior accountant. I would like to say thank you to the whole finance team. I hope they're watching. I love that they are finally being recognized for their work that they do every day. And they, always chip in even when the going gets tough. Most of these ladies have been here longer than me, so over 10 years. So we've been a good, cohesive group working together for a long time. And to the board and the superintendent, I would like to thank you on behalf of the entire team for taking time to recognize the finance department for their hard work and dedication. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have another special recognition tonight, and we're honoring a person who's no stranger to any of us. So to do the honors, I'd like to introduce our department's community engagement specialist, Deborah Perry Gambino. So, Deborah.
Good evening, Board Chair Messenger, board members, and Superintendent Saunders. This evening, it is my pleasure to recognize two individuals who are leaders in the community and dedicated business partners with the school district. In 2017, John and Amanda Horn, owner-operators of the Anna Maria Oyster Bar, founded and implemented the Dive into Reading Summer Program to support our most vulnerable student population, which includes approximately 450 rising first, second, and third grade students. The goal of this program was to enhance reading skills, combat the summer slide, and mentor social, emotional learning skills. As part of the program, John and Amanda opened their restaurants to multiple classes of Title I students to provide a hot breakfast for those students who, in most cases, were entering a restaurant for the first time. 400 volunteers were recruited and trained in strategies for mentoring each student in reading. During the program, the students received free books, and upon completion, they received a backpack full of school supplies. Smiles radiated from the faces of the students and the volunteers, and you can really sense the joy in their hearts during this 4-week program. In 2020, the big question was, what do we do when a pandemic hits? Amanda Horn stepped up to the challenge and provided a virtual reading platform for the Title I students to be engaged with volunteers in this parental opt-in program. John and Amanda are leaders in their field. They are leaders in the community, and the school district of Manatee County appreciates their continued and dedicated partnership. John and Amanda and the Anna Maria Oyster Bar have been recognized throughout their career, and most recently, they were recognized by the Florida Department of Education for the 2020 Commissioner's Business Recognition Awards. It is my great pleasure to ask Mr. John Horn to join me at the podium to receive the recognition both he and Amanda so richly deserve.
Haven't seen you guys in a long time. Thank you so much. It's because you guys put our name forward and you guys nominated us to the Department of Education, to the commissioner, that we got this award. And we are very, very honored that you would think that of us to put us forward for that. We sure appreciate it. I can say that this is awesome, but this is everything my wife did. I didn't do anything. It's like normal. She does all the work and I get to take credit. But I cannot tell you how fun it was on Zoom this year. You know, we looked at it like this is going to be just horrible that we can't bring the kids into the restaurants. We can't sit down and eat with them. We can't feed. We can't learn about life skills. But it gave us an opportunity to expose them to so much more because of Zoom. They were able to have readings with giraffes that we zoomed in. They had readings with the superintendent. They had firefighters. They had a surgeon from an operating room read to them. They had an astronaut that had been on the International Space Station read to them and ask and answer questions. Things that I know I never got a chance when I was a kid to talk to a real life astronaut that had been on the space station or to the moon or anything. It was just phenomenal that out of bad comes good. And so we're real pleased. And just to keep you up to date on what we've done with our program, we expanded to DeSoto County this year. So they took our program and ran with it on Zoom as well. And it was very successful. So we're real pleased. We're hoping to keep expanding and more children are exposed to learn how to love to read. So thanks for nominating us. And my wife is sitting in the cool hills of North Carolina right now. But I had a meeting this afternoon I had to come to, so I came back. But thank you all so very much. We appreciate it.
That's what Amanda
Thank
too.
you.
All the best.
Thank you, John.
Okay, I'm going to move forward with the approval of the agenda. The chair has found good cause to amend the agenda to include all items listed under agenda amendments on the August 25th, 2020 agenda, updated August 24th, 2020, and posted to the district website, manateeschools.net. Is there a motion?
So moved by Minor.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion, but I do have an unreadiness.
Okay, I've got a motion. Mr. Minor, can you hit your button?
Yeah, thank you.
And a second. Before I move forward, is Dr. Hopes on Teams?
He is on Teams. We have no sound, just picture at this moment, and we are also having some technical difficulties sending the meeting out to, on the TV as well. So MSTV is working on it.
Oh,
But Dr. Hopes is on the Teams meeting. He just can't communicate.
well, that's beneficial.
I don't know if you want to take a break for a recess for just a couple minutes to see if we can work through this.
What does the rest of the board believe?
Madam Chair, I would suggest we do I have
Approve the agenda?
two things
and
I'd like to pull from consent, so maybe we can just approve the agenda and then
then we'll take a break.
we'll take a break. Yeah.
Is that fine? Okay. So we've got a motion and a second.
What happens to my unreadiness?
I'm sorry?
The unreadiness that I raised, I want to amend the agenda.
Absolutely, I understand. Would you like to make a motion to amend the agenda?
Yes. I want to amend the agenda to include a recognition for Mr. Bob Christopher for his service to the Citizens Financial Oversight Committee as its chair from its inception until today. And that the superintendent be directed to prepare such a recognition, I guess. I don't know whether
You're
that'll
not
be,
asking to recognize him tonight, but only to direct the superintendent to
To
make
prepare.
something.
yes.
Okay?
I don't
So
know if
there's been a
that's-
motion to amend the agenda to have perhaps discussion on a recognition for Mr. Christopher.
Yes.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, we are on to amending the agenda to add a discussion item under new business to include directing the superintendent to create a recognition for Mr. Christopher. Is there any further discussion on the agenda amendment? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor of the amendment, as stated, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, well, I did just hear Dr. Hopes, so maybe that part's gotten figured out. Wonderful. That passed unanimously.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to amend the agenda as well.
Give me just one, I just want to make sure
Sure, take it, sorry.
I'm just making myself a note. Okay, yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to, I may not even need a motion to amend. I just wanted to pull number 21, which is the HR document for today's meeting, from consent and to be added to new business. And also number 23, which is the approval of the uniform statewide assessment calendar, and add that to new business as well.
Since those were consent items, I find no reason to, that's fine.
We can just pull it.
Yep, that's what we've been doing. That is just how this board has been working, so we will continue to do that. So those will be moved to new business items pulled from consent. And that will be item number 21, which is the HR document, and 23, which is the uniform statewide assessment calendar. Am I understanding you correctly? Okay. Is there any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we're going to vote on the agenda as it has been amended.
Okay, we've approved Mr. Kennedy's motion.
No, because he pulled it from consent. And as we've had a discussion before, if it was
Okay.
pulled from consent,
Okay, we're going to just put it there.
the board
Okay.
accepts that as a typical way that we work. That is a conversation that we've had before.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call the question on approving the agenda as it has been amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Before we move forward, Dr. Hopes can now hear us?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. All right, then we can move forward. We will move forward with reports and presentations. Mr. Chapman.
Okay. Michelle is passing out right now. The last time I came before you, hopefully we're putting the screen up. Nick's putting the screen up. Last time I was before you for the strategic plan was in February for a workshop. A lot has changed since then. What you have in front of you is the latest draft of the strategic plan, incorporating all of the comments and additions and edits that you all suggested. And what I'd like to recommend tonight is you all approve the advertisement of this strategic plan out for public comment, and then it would be put up for board consideration for final approval or disapproval on September 22nd's board meeting. So that's so you have the draft in front of you, and then I just have a couple of slides to run through just to kind of bring you up to date as I figure this out. Here we go. Let me do this. Okay, good. So again, just to kind of put you through, we've come to this point because we've spent now 12 months. It would have probably been sooner, but the pandemic put a little obstacle in our way, but we're here, and the school year has started, but hopefully we can move this in September. But a lot of work is done. You can see from this slide all the committees we've met with, the community, employees, surveys, pretty extensive work that has been done over the last year. I just highlighted on this slide just some of the key highlights of the plan. There's a lot in this plan. It's a 2-year strategic plan like we've talked about before. But a lot of work has already started because the last time I saw you was in February, and a lot of work was just already kind of moving along. Some of the things I want to highlight here are, again, we're about to undergo restructuring our MTSS behavioral and academic system, which is a big undertaking. We're also about to launch here next month a SEL mental health, if you will, survey to all our students across the school district, which will start to measure our school climate. And then something that I think the board may not be completely aware of yet, but our work on the diversity, equity, and inclusion with this district. And I know in this plan there's a lot of work that's going to be done in this DEI area. And recently, under the leadership of the superintendent, we have formed an internal diversity committee. We already have an external diversity committee. Our internal diversity committee is made up of many of our diverse principals and directors, our leaders in the district. And we've already begun work on drafting an equity board policy that we'd like to bring to you all here either next month is the plan. To start working on that, and that will incorporate a lot of the work that's in the strategic plan, like recruitment and retention, a lot of the work on the DEI training for all staff. It kind of puts it into policy that we would do a lot of this work on the equity side. So kind of excited about that work. We met actually this last Saturday, the Internal Diversity Committee, and but we'll all come before you probably in a workshop to explain more about that. But we're obviously working a lot on continuing our security enhancements. Dr. Lundy, who I saw outside, is working to redo our professional learning program and really enhance all of our training when it comes to that. So a lot of work has already begun that's in this strategic plan. So how to track the strategic plan, because there's a lot in here, even though it's only 2-year plan. One is I've talked to you about, and we'll present this to the board at some point. You all approved a project management software called Smartsheet, and this is it's almost built. It's in the testing phase right now, but that's where all our technology projects that are in the strategic plan are in, our 5-year capital plan projects. Many of our maintenance, the larger maintenance projects will be in. and we'll be able to track that. I'm also going to put the strategic plan in Smartsheet so we can set those milestones, set those key dates and key targets, and track that through the project management software. On the curriculum side, I know Dr. Hopes, we I know we need to meet with you. This pandemic keeps putting in obstacles, but I know Dr. Hopes is very interested in kind of seeing how we're going to track the curriculum side when it comes to our early learning goals, our graduation rates, our some of the ELA goals and such. So obviously we have our district benchmarks and our state assessments on that, but we'll meet with Dr. Hopes a little more specifically on that. But other ways is our I just described our diversity committee, internal diversity committee, and within that we're going to form committees on the professional learning side. There's already an internal committee working on recruitment and retention. So again, a lot of this work is either be tracked in Smartsheets through our on our curriculum side with our benchmarks and state assessments, and then also through our committee work, and then myself coming before you to say here's where we are, and track the plan. Chair Messenger, you asked at the last meeting a very good question about how are we going to communicate this. Again, in a non-COVID world, I would be making the rounds around Manatee County, speaking to the chamber and the EOC and all the groups, all our stakeholders around town, but we'll try to do that virtually. But also a lot of those leaders are on our community strategic plan task force, which we will meet with them again in this 30-day window to kind of get their final views on it. We'll also meet with our external diversity committee in this 30-day window. We'll also, I'll make the rounds, again, probably virtually with our, like I did during this 12-month process, to our SAC chairs and our SAC meetings, our DAC, which is our district advisory committee, which is made up of all the SAC chairs, our parent task force. And also, there's a tab already now on the pretty prominent tab on our website that's a strategic plan section. So I plan to put this new plan on there. And then, obviously, the biggest thing is communicating with employees, because part of in this plan is to really enhance our communication with employees and get them more involved in kind of what's going on, or really for us to kind of make that connection better with what's kind of going on district-wide with all of our employees. So came up with an idea of maybe once a month making I call it in the slide a personalized connection, but like making the strategic plan alive, because you could talk all day about strategic plan and it could probably put somebody to sleep. So it's kind of making that personalized connection. How is this strategic plan going to affect me in my job, or affect that student at a school, or a teacher in the classroom? So I think each month, working with Mike Barber's communication team to maybe personalize it, tell a little story about what the strategic plan and what's it going to do, and how's it moving forward, and how's it going to affect me in my job. Also try to go to faculty meetings. That again will be difficult in COVID, but again, I made those rounds before COVID, and I'll try to make those rounds again to inform faculty that there is a new strategic plan. Here are some of the goals and some of the highlights, and then also working with our senior leaders, our department heads, to do similar things. So again, a little challenging in a non-COVID world, but we'll make it work. And then the final slide, just to kind of, this is a 2-year plan. It ends June 2022, and then we'll start the process in January 2022 for a new plan that will start at the beginning of the school year in August, and make it more of a longer process, not a longer process, but a more thorough process than the time frame we were working with when I was brought on and kind of had to bring on a strategic plan. So this plan, like we've said before, is a 2-year plan. It's kind of a bridge plan, kind of building the foundation, doing the work that needs to be done to maybe build upon and make maybe a longer bolder plan, if you will, the next time around, which is something I know Dr. Hopes has talked about as well. So I'll stop there and take questions. But again, this is for us to advertise, or for you all to advertise this plan for 30 days for public comment, and then up again in September 22nd board meeting for approval.
Thank you. Reverend Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chapman, I'm looking at this presentation, and this is very, very good. The thing that I note, though, is that every one of the investments that we're about to make has goals attached to them, except millage. This says that the millage is building a better future. And so what I would like to fathom here is, at this stage, with this 2-year plan in place, what would be an acceptable goal, not with respect to the millage that we already have, because we are using that, but what would be a realistic goal for us as a board to put forth in terms of the renewal of the millage? Would it simply be that we would want to build support for the renewal of the millage, or do we want to go further and say that we are supporting the efforts that are designed to lead to a renewal of the millage? How can we word a goal that gives everybody an opportunity to buy into the need, the necessity, the desire to continue on this track that we're on with the renewal of the millage, which comes up, I think, in 2022. Am I right?
It does. It'll be along the same lines of drafting or starting the work on a new strategic plan. And I think that was one of the thoughts that went into this 2-year plan, was to really lay the foundation, the groundwork that needed to be done. I know I keep quoting Dr. Hopes, and he's not here, but to really make this school district the best school district in the state of Florida. And I think if we do what's in this 2-year plan and really lay that groundwork down, I think leading into that millage vote, if you all put that referendum forward, I think we'll have a lot to say. Look what we have accomplished in these 2 years, both on the academic side, on the technology side. We have a page in there about doing some work on the keeping or the energy efficiency, kind of looking at that. Our financial transparency side, we just won an award for that. So I think the work that, if we can complete this, which we will, this strategic plan in 2 years, and do what's in there, I think we have a very strong platform to go to the voters and say, we need this millage again to continue to help our teachers and help our classrooms and schools continue this great work. And I think it was mentioned by some of the people on the Citizens Financial Committee earlier. We were, or if hopefully we will be this year, it will be tough with COVID, but we were 1 or 2 points away from being an A school district, and I think that will have a lot to say come if the referendum comes before the voters again. So I think when you add all that up, I think that is a goal, if you will, is, I think, accomplishing what's in this strategic plan. But a specific goal on the millage is something that Mr. Wagner and I can add to the plan. But I think, and something I guess we didn't really, because the work of the millage continues, like you said. So having a specific goal, I don't know, but we can come back with one.
Well, I don't want you to come back with one, because you brought this before us tonight to get approval to advertise. And I appreciate, as my colleague Mr. Kennedy would say, your diplomatic answer. And I appreciate that. But the reality is that we have come a long way because of the millage that has been passed. And we need to be very firm as a board in terms of our commitment to trying to get this renewed. We already know a lot of the things in here that you're putting in this 2-year plan are not going to come to fruition in 2 years, and they won't come to fruition unless we have the funding to get them done. And so I'm just asking, and maybe I'm not even really asking you, I'm asking the board, if there's an appetite to be upfront and direct and transparent with the people now, that this plan is a plan that relies on and that we hope will be able to utilize the renewal of the millage. And that we are going to speak with one voice. We may not speak with one voice about a lot of things, but on this, we agree that we need to make sure that we are prepared to meet the needs of the next 5-year plan, because we have spent 2 years preparing to have this millage renewed. And so that Madam Chair, is the gist of what I would like to bring up here. There needs to be a goal that we have in mind. And I'm not saying that we all committed to the millage, because we don't know what it should be and what it would be used for, but we at least ought to be committed to the premise that the millage is a part of our financial future and that we're going to support that. We're not going to waffle about that, and we're not going to try to make this a political football. It's a reality, especially given the kinds of situations that we're experiencing now, with the reduction in funding, with the reduction in state monies, with all of the COVID exigencies that we haven't contemplated. So I want it to be very clear and very unequivocal that we are depending on being able to move forward with a renewal of the millage. And I think that's very important in terms of this investing in our students. We need to begin to invest now the political capital that we do have, saying that this is not going to happen by magic or by miracle. This is really going to happen because we work hard and because we believe in what we're doing here. And that, Madam Chair, I don't know, at the appropriate time, I guess I'll ask that we include that.
Okay. And then, Ed, like you said, this is going to come before us as an advertisement, so it will come back before us again.
Right, we have a 30-day
There
window.
is time
to
period
make
that
edits and things.
these things can be added.
Absolutely, yeah.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin, first I want to thank, I know there was the input of hundreds of people that went into this document, but I want to thank you and Damon and Jessica for putting it together. I think this is now your 4th time in front of us with the plan.
I'm not counting. I enjoy
I'm not either, but it feels like 4. So it really, to me, is, not that it's a shame it's a 2-year plan, but to me, this document is the basis. It's not only gets us through the next 2 years, but it will be the basis of our next plan as well. Because there's so much covered here, and it's really it's really very well done. Reverend Golden's point is like this will. Many of these pieces are going to be our advertising campaign, our public campaign in 2022 to renew, hopefully this board supports it, renewing the millage. So I just wanted to share that thought, that I really, I consider this more than just a 2-year plan. I think this is really foundational for well beyond us. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the input from us directly that you did. I felt very included in putting this together. And when you include people, they take ownership, and so I feel like I have some ownership for this plan.
Yeah, rightfully so.
And,
Yeah, we've when you look at the we formed that external diversity committee, I think last year, November, December, and their input is in that strategic plan. We're going to meet with them again here in this 30-day window, but I'm excited to come back to the board and show you all the work on the diversity work, or come back to you and show you Smart Sheet and show you how these projects are going to be you know, how you can look at all these projects through Smartsheets. I'm excited to come back and show you where we are on the curriculum side. The work that Larissa Bennett's doing on the SEL work and the MTSS work is going to set us so far ahead. And to come back, do a workshop or something, and really dive deep into all that and show you the results of that student survey and all the work that's going to be done. I mean, that's kind of exciting stuff. So that's really, and I mean, that's just part of those are just pieces of the plan. So that really is the foundation, because we haven't even, you know, Diana Whitehead on the mental health side. I mean, there's a lot of work just beginning to get done, and that work's going to take 2 years. But to see that come to fruition after 2 years is going to be very exciting, and it's going to really set this school district up for some really big successes moving forward.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Jan.
Okay, not seeing any further discussion. I really appreciate your hard work and your diligence and taking the time to really listen to so many different community groups, parents and the teachers and all the other different groups. I really appreciate all the time that you've taken to do that.
Yep.
I agree with Vice Chair Kennedy. Buy-in is important. Because this should become our common language. These are our goals together, and we need that buy-in so that we can all work together to get there. So I really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do we need to, for this advertisement to go out, is this what's going to be advertised as the strategic plan?
Yes.
And do we need to vote on that, or is this
It will
just?
come before us on the consent agenda.
And then there's a 30-day, oh, I know, sorry.
It will come before us on the consent agenda today?
The advertisement.
Just the approval to advertise it, not to approve the document. The approval to advertise it because we're going to have a public hearing on it.
Okay.
So it's just an approval to advertise it.
And the question, and I don't want to belabor the issue, what are we advertising?
That,
This?
yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. And this does not have a goal with respect to the millage coming forward in 2022. And so where is the appropriate time to ask up or down from this board that we consider leading the community in the effort to renew the millage? Now, or whether, I don't know whether leadership is the right word, I don't want to parse that, but I'm not wanting this board, as a board, to be divided over whether or not we are for or against renewal of the millage. And not when this is our long-range plan. This is the document that we are going to be using to go forward. So I don't know.
So to answer your question, typically, if the board wishes to change something, we change it at the public hearing. We can change it prior to the public hearing by meeting with Mr. Chapman or the superintendent. If that is altered in here, then the board can choose to vote that up or down. Depending on how it's worded, I am not convinced I would personally be in favor of that. I think that this, as Mr. Kennedy said, lays the foundation for our next 5 years and perhaps could create an argument for or against the millage, depending on outcomes from this. And I think stating a goal that we are going to go for the millage is not a goal that I think I'd be comfortable stating, because that's not an academic goal, that's not a personnel goal. To me, this lays that argument one way or another. I think that putting a stated goal would be on something that I think this determines that to me. However, I'm only one person. I don't think this is the time or place we have to debate it. I do think you can bring that up at the public hearing. I do think that you could have a statement created with Mr. Chapman, and I trust Mr. Chapman in his word crafting abilities to probably word that in a way that perhaps I'd find amenable. So I suggest the best course of action would be to work with district staff to have that ready for the public hearing and then propose it at the public hearing. Because at the public hearing is typically when we change things.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does that, are we good?
Oh, yeah, we're good.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we will move forward with the approval of the minutes. Now, interestingly enough, on my markup, it actually says this comes from the chair, but I believe that comes from the superintendent. So, Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of the minutes from Board Workshop August 4th, 2020, regular meeting and public hearing on August 11th, 2020, emergency meeting on August 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Seconded by Minor.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We will move forward. Consent agenda. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of the consent agenda for August 25th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We will move forward to new business discussion items pulled from consent. Our first item that was pulled from consent is approval of the appointments, change of assignments, promotions, reappointments, reassignments, resignations, retirements, suspensions, terminations, and transfers. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of the amendments, change of assignments, promotions, reappointments, reassignments, resignations, retirements, suspensions, terminations, and transfers.
So moved to approve.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This was pulled. Mr. Minor, you made the motion. Is there any comment you'd like to make, or would you like me to start with Mr. Kennedy?
Start with Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Kennedy.
All right, thanks, Madam Chair. My concern with this item came up yesterday when the Second District Court, or Second Circuit Court, struck down the constitutionality of Richard Corcoran's emergency order. And my concern came because that, and I will bring this up later during my board comments, but that court decision, and I understand it's already been appealed, clearly the plaintiff side, the FEA, is going to just as quickly ask the judge not to grant that stay, is that hold on the case is automatic. And judging by the opinion of the judge, I can't imagine that the judge is going to let that stay remain in effect, which I think for districts around the state is going to necessitate a conversation about not a whole-scale rethinking of reopening, or in our case, we're already open, but I think it does lead us to a conversation of possibilities. Now, like a whole bunch of possibilities have been open to us, which we can get to later, but the way it affects this item is, my concern was that there are about 100, between departments, there's about 100 resignations on this document. And my concern is that a person, one of those 100, may have resigned thinking that this new normal that we have opened under was the way things were going to be. And maybe what we're in now will remain how things are going to be. But what I wanted to ask that we do is let me talk about my original ask to the superintendent yesterday, and she responded to me quickly, was that we pull the resignation items off and postpone them until the board has had a chance to even discuss next steps after the judge's decision. The superintendent pointed out to me wisely that there's potential that some of those resignations are attached to a new hire who's on the same document. So obviously that would create an issue. So really my reason for pulling this item from consent is because I wanted to remove from the document those resignations and postpone them until the next meeting, But Madam Superintendent, I don't know if you have an update since we talked yesterday, or?
I do. I have it, but I would also like Ms. Mangello, our Director of HR, has gone and did an extensive look just to see if there were issues or concerns or the numbers of those attachments. If the chair would allow, I would like Ms. Mangello to come up and give a report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Looked at our board work that we have with our typical board material that we present, and just wanted to give you some numbers. Looking at our teacher retirements and resignations together, 24 of those positions have already been filled, and 13 of those positions remain unfilled at this time. So we have already replaced those retirements or resignations with another employee. When we're looking at retirements, I know you're really talking about resignations, so I'll talk about that.
Thank you. Yes, Wayne.
Out of all the resignations on the board work, including teachers, paras, food service, transportation, and custodial, I had my staff today go and look at their resignation letters to determine their reasons. And out of them, we had 4% that were just no calls, no shows, just didn't show up to work. 24% gave no reason. 22% gave COVID as a reason. 10% was a relocation. 20% have sought or have already received employment elsewhere. And 17% just said for personal reasons. I guess the question would be, what do we do with the 24 teachers that we've already hired in place of the ones that have resigned or retired? And if we hold off on those resignations, I'm not quite sure where we would be with our whole transfer process that we're just getting ready to take part in. When we typically go into a transfer process after a 10-day count adjustment, we have to freeze all of our open positions through MEA. So all of our para positions and all our teacher positions are frozen. So if we delay this, then we will not be able to post any positions. And so we do have some positions out there that you know, our principals are waiting to be posted.
Okay.
And just additionally, from an HR standpoint, I'm not sure how, if somebody resigns, how we could stop them from resigning and leaving.
Madam Chair, may I?
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think you know where I was trying to go with this, but it's like the execution of the idea, the plan, or the thought. I mean, the 22% that specifically said they're resigning because of COVID, excuse me. But I think retirements do play into this, because we could have some people that who retired before they really wanted to, but they were at an age where they were at risk, possibly. You know, because you resign, I guess when you retire, then your FRS factors start to kick in. But if you resign, there's always, I don't want to answer my own question, but there's the potential that person could be rehired after a resignation.
Correct. As well as a retirement once there's a certain time period that has to.
It's still 6 months?
It's 6 months, yes.
Yeah.
If not, there are financial ramifications for the person who's retired.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know the specifics of all of our retirees on this particular board work, but a resignation could always definitely be a rehire at a later time.
Okay, yeah, this was, and I've received no phone calls, no emails from anybody who is in this situation, but when I saw the judge's decision yesterday, that was one of the first things. Oh man, I feel bad for these people who may have quit their job prematurely if the board does decide to kind of tinker with our formula a little bit, or our modalities, I guess I should say. But okay, well, Wendy, I appreciate the research your department did
Okay, thank
today.
you.
I'm sure that was a lot of work. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Reverend Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The decision that was rendered by the Circuit Court judge in Tallahassee was a decision that declared unconstitutional the Commissioner of Education's order that said, if you do not open schools brick and mortar for 5 days a week before September the 1st, you will lose your funding. And that is unconstitutional for him to have done. He does not have the authority to do that. And so I'm concerned at this point why we would not approve the recommendations of these appointments, change of assignments, promotions, reappointments, reassignments, resignations, retirements, et cetera, on the basis of that opinion. That opinion was an opinion that declared that the Commissioner of Education had overreached in his authority by saying if schools do not open for 5 days, brick and mortar, they would lose their funding. That is what was declared unconstitutional. The rest of what he said with a lot of verbiage to no avail really didn't impact individual teachers. It was directed at districts, but it was not directed at districts in an unconstitutional manner. And they are likely to prevail on the issue that he issued the temporary injunction for. And the fact that he made that statement that they couldn't get funded was arbitrary and capricious, which was also upheld. So I'm prepared to support this particular part of the consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Hopes?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think Reverend Golden said it quite succinctly, and knowing the parties involved, you can expect this if they have to. They'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. So I would be surprised if during at least this first quarter of the year that the circuit court's ruling is really anything that we're going to have to deviate from. And I'm prepared to support the superintendent's recommendations. She's the one that's responsible for the day-to-day operation of the district, and she's made this decision. And it's really not where the board needs to get down into a level of who we're going to allow to resign or not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Kennedy?
Thanks. I'll be quick. The reason I felt like I already said this, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but the losing side, who was the governor and Richard Corcoran, immediately appealed. My opinion, and I think Dr. Hopes, I think you would agree with this, and Reverend Golden, I think you probably read it the same way, is that when you read the judge's decision, it absolutely eviscerates the defense's arguments. So therefore, I don't think this judge is going to let that stay remain in place, which means that the judge's decision is in effect through this school year until it finally, I agree, does make its way through the Supreme Court, which is going to take a while. I'm fully prepared to, now given what I've heard, I'm fully supportive of this item. I mean, I appreciate the follow-up to my question yesterday and the research that was done. But let me just give you a quick example. Let's say now that we are out from under, assuming we get out from under this order, which I think we will be, possibly by tomorrow's workshop, we could then as a board say, hey, do we want to go back to the original plan that we had, which was a really good plan before the emergency order was placed upon us? And so, and maybe maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse and the board doesn't want to do this anyway, which we'll figure out soon enough later on. But that's all I was thinking about is if we have a change in modalities, would that have affected people who resigned thinking we were living under the emergency order? So that's all I was getting after, and I appreciate everybody's work on behalf of that question. So thanks.
Mr. Reiner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Judge Dodson's,
Can you please move in front of your microphone?
yeah, I'm sorry. I think Judge Dodson's opinion, and it's all of about 17 pages, which I'd like to make, part of the record, supports basically what Mr. Kennedy and I were saying, that it's a good plan that we have, but the timing wasn't what we deemed appropriate. And we were doing it, I think, at that time, in part because we had this order coming down from Tallahassee that you got to do this, which, as I said back then, it's unconstitutional. We have a provision in the Florida Constitution that says the school boards of each county are the ones who supervise, control the public education in the county. It's not Mr. Corcoran, it's not the governor, it's not the President of the United States. And this was an overreach by the governor and Commissioner Corcoran in trying to impose a political view upon our community and all communities in the state of Florida. And that's how I interpret Judge Dodson's opinion. Well-meaning as the order might be, it was unconstitutional. What I respectfully see differently, from Mr. Kennedy is, Board Member Kennedy, is that, okay, we've started school. I think that the return to school was better than most people expected. It was the product of a great deal of work by staff to make the schools as safe as possible, to prepare for incidences that may occur. And okay, we're rolling along. I made a remark, I believe, at that meeting where this was adopted, that we weren't, not to phrase our response in terms of a compliance, but we gave a response to it, with a plan. We did not have to obey. We were complying, and it was accepted as by the Department of Education. I don't think that delaying approval of these appointments accomplishes any positive effect, for our district, and that's why I move for it, and I support approval of it, and we'll move on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Reverend Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too have read the opinion, and quite honestly, what has not yet been brought out is that the order by Commissioner Corcoran had constitutional parts and it had unconstitutional parts. And the order that Mr. Minor is quoting from specifically says that where you are able to separate constitutional parts of an order or a judgment or a law from the unconstitutional parts, you will do so. This judge has already done that. And in fact, he has determined that there will be a temporary injunction against the state of Florida through its governor and the state of Florida's Department of Education through its Commission of Education, enjoining them against withholding money because school boards did not, A, submit a report or submit a request to them asking for permission to open, as they said in their order, or B, that they would not be allowed to withhold funding from schools that did not submit this report. There's a temporary injunction that is still in place. The stay that has been referred to is a stay that has been requested by the people who are appealing. And that stay has to be made before this judge. I cannot imagine under any circumstances whatsoever that on one day this judge would grant the temporary injunction for the purposes that he did grant it, and then the very next day grant a stay to his own temporary injunction. That's not going to happen. And what will happen is that we will have a political football made out of this, as we have with respect to the old issue, all of the issues of opening our schools. The fact that Manatee County is one of the school districts that did submit a plan simply says that we submitted one in case this judge had ruled against us. He did not. He ruled for us. We don't need to have submitted a plan. But I would much rather have submitted one and not need it than have not submitted one and needed it. And in this political climate, the way we're treating the issue of this coronavirus, who knows what will come out of the governor's mansion, or who knows what will come out of the Department of Education, or for that matter, who knows what will come out of the White House. But what that order did say specifically, and I quote, "The decision to reopen schools is in the hands of local school officials and their health departments." Is that not the language that's in there, Mr. Minor, Attorney Minor? I know it's there. It's probably about the 11th or 12th page in the order. And so the issue of doing this is an issue that is raised by of when we open schools is squarely in our hands. That has not been taken away from us. They cannot take it away from us. But what they cannot do is condition our decisions on the funding that they provide. And that is what has been enjoined from happening. And that will not be stayed because the governor has appealed. Remember, the governor's also appealed some, well, I won't go there. But anyway, thank you, Madam Chair.
I appreciate it. I feel like we're kind of getting off topic. This was specifically about this HR board material.
Yes.
It went off
Respond to Board Member Golden.
quickly.
Okay. Page 14, the first full paragraph reads, "Schools should reopen when the local decision makers determine, upon the advice of medical experts, that it is safe to do so. Our Constitution requires safe schools. The court therefore severs Section 3, the requirement of reopening plan, and any reference to statutory waivers being conditioned upon said, quote, approved reopening plans."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Reverend Golden. Thank you.
On the subject of this HR board material,
I just have one, I just need 20
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Yeah, Reverend Golden, I just want to correct one of your facts. When the governor appealed, that automatically put a stay in place. And so today, the plaintiffs, the FEA on behalf of public schools, they filed a plaintiff's joint emergency motion to vacate automatic stay. So there is a stay on it right now, just by the act of the governor filing an appeal. That's all. Thanks, Madam
I
Chair.
think we could debate that all day long with
It's not even a debate, it's just,
with
it's a
the-
fact.
With the lawyers all up here. We are on the HR board material. It has had a motion and a second. It has been fully debated. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Moving forward, we are on to the approval of the 2020-2021 Uniform Statewide Assessment Calendar. Madam Superintendent, do you have recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of the 2020-2021 Uniform State Assessment Calendar with district assessments, no financial impact.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Mr. Minor
Second.
and a second by Reverend Golden. Reverend Golden, will you hit your second button? Mr. Minor beat you to it with he hit the button and everything. All right,
Thank you,
Mr. Minor, you made the motion. Would
Yeah.
you like to start us off, or would you like me to move to Vice Chair Kennedy since he asked to move this?
I will allow Mr. Kennedy that privilege if that's approval with the chair. Okay?
Well, I mean, it's your,
It's okay,
it's
that's
your
fine.
privilege, so I wanted to make sure I
Okay.
offered it to
No,
you.
I will pass the baton over to Board Member Kennedy.
All right, Vice Chair Kennedy.
We're not as fast as we used to be on the track, are we? No, this one, because of the battle we are about to wage, the continued battle we're about to wage between the Commissioner of Education and local school boards, I think, I fear of what's going to come of the testing calendar, or not the calendar itself, but the results of state testing that is going to come this year. Because if he doesn't get his way, I can only imagine what kind of cut scores we're going to see coming out of DOE. So I really hope that statewide school boards get together and superintendents get together and push the Department of Education to not have, or at least cut back on the testing calendar this year. Because as we all know, we're now open for, a week and a half, barely. It's going to be, as Mr. Minor said, we're open and things are, we're really hearing a lot of good success stories. We got some things we got to work out still, but we're open. And, but like to pull off our full testing calendar in this school year, I think is a really kind of draconian measure. I was stunned when they eliminated the testing regime in the fourth quarter. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think Corcoran had it in him, but he did it. And so really this is just kind of like a symbolic no vote for me on this one, because like I said, I just want to kind of push back on the anticipated testing calendar that's going to come next spring. And I hope we as a board will, and boards around the state will join in that effort, but we'll see how it goes. So, but tonight I'm a no.
Madam Superintendent?
Mr. Kennedy, I have spoken to a number of superintendents, and one thing that I think when we do have a workshop when we're talking about what items we would like our lobbyists to bring forward, I think one thing would be very beneficial, even if they didn't want to say no assessments. I would request that we have no school grades tied to any test. Because that is really, if they feel like we need to have a baseline just to determine if there's any loss or the complete impact of COVID, I think that would be a reasonable, logical expectation. But to tie school grades and teacher evaluations to it is the area that we are very concerned with. I can tell you our staff, our teachers, our school administrators have done a tremendous job trying to do the very best they can with all that has been brought before them, with the e-learning, the hybrid, the 5 days. But we know it's going to be intermittent in some cases for some people as well as faculty. So that is what I think would really be beneficial when we do bring up topics that we want our lobbyists to look at. I would recommend that we look at least eliminating teacher evaluations tied to assessments and school grades for this year, if at all possible.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
We may have a better shot of getting that than just saying no test. So,
Dr. Hopes?
Yes, Madam Chair, I agree with the superintendent, and as I've said from the beginning of this pandemic, we are going to be dealing with this. I'm confident throughout the school year and into the end of this academic calendar. I agree with putting us on our agenda, but for the purposes of tonight, this is part of our normal way of calendaring. We probably need to go ahead and at least have a calendar with regards to this, but my expectation is that school grades are not going to be tied to it. The educator performance is not going to be tied to it. This is going to be probably the most disruptive year that any of us have seen. And I think we do need the calendar. I think we need to make it clear as Mr. Kennedy has, to the public, that our expectation is we're going to do the best job that we can do to maintain our academic momentum. But this is not a year to test and bind those test results to any reasonable metric other than internally for us to know how well we have maintained that academic momentum. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Reverend Golden?
Does approval of the calendar automatically create the commitment to abide by it, since it's a calendar that the state could revoke? And I don't know, I thought that we had had discussions about whether or not there were going to be the use of assessments this year. They've already had those discussions, even though we have the calendar that's before us. I'm really asking if in fact we say we approve the calendar, are we automatically saying, and we will not change, or we will not change with people who may change the calendar? This is a uniform statewide calendar, so the people that approved it have the ability to say, well, we changed our minds. We're not going to have assessments. Where does that leave us?
Madam Superintendent?
Yes, it is a statute requirement for the board to approve our testing calendar to ensure that we're not exceeding the required number of minutes for assessments. But you're 100% correct. The bulk of this are the state assessments listed. We do have 2 benchmark tests that we use for our own progress monitoring. Other than that, they're all state assessments. The state, if they amend it like they did last year, we will then amend our testing calendar to reflect that of the state. So as of this time, it is a statute requirement that we offer an approved calendar for that purpose, but it can be amended at any time. And if the state changes anything, we will, of course, remove that and alter the calendar.
So the memory that I have is that there was an amendment to last year's calendar.
Correct.
Where they waived the assessments for the end of the year. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and they could do that this year too?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I do think it's early. I would not imagine that they're going to come out in August and make that decision at this time. So I do think working with our lobbyists would be a very beneficial thing to do, especially in terms of teacher evaluation and school grade.
Because the kids that were deprived last year, I don't want to say deprived, I guess, the kids that were not required to be assessed last year are now at risk of being assessed this year without any benchmark to use to determine whether they've improved at all, because they don't have a junior year assessment.
And that is why I'm not sure that they are going to come to the conclusion of no testing at all. I think we may have a better chance of how it's tied or the impact of the assessment.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Did I second that too?
You did.
Okay. So we ready to vote?
I would like to make a comment.
Oh, okay.
I typically agree with Mr. Kennedy on the less tests, the better. That's typically my mantra. I always liked to assess my students so that I could use it to determine how I'm going to teach my students. I will say that I think the district is moving in the right direction. This testing calendar is 90 minutes less testing than last year and 230 minutes less than 2 years ago. So I think we're moving in the right direction. And for that, I am supporting it because I believe we should continually find ways that we can test less, but we still have to be efficient. Especially since we know that our students went through so much at the end of last year. I think we're going to need some of these assessments so that the teachers can make the appropriate academic plans for their students. Not to mention, since we have 3 different modalities, the importance of these tests is probably even higher right now for the district and for the teachers. so they can say, these practices are working. You know, as a teacher, you have your practices. You go, okay, these are the best practices. These are working. These are tried and true. I can see it working in my class. But if this is a totally new way of teaching, you're going to need an assessment piece that can say, yes, these are these best practices for this new modality that we are trying. So I think that we need to make sure we do have some sort of benchmark in place, which I believe that's really what this is going to be offering for our teachers to use. So I support that. And I do appreciate that the minutes have been reduced over the last couple of years. Anytime we can reduce it more, I will be in support of that as well. But I think that I also agree, and I think we will be discussing that later on in the next month, not tying the test to the teacher evaluation and not tying the test to the school grade. I 100% agree with both of those, regardless of a pandemic. The pandemic does not matter to me in that point of view. It shouldn't be happening either way, for a variety of reasons that I could go into. But I won't go into them today because that's not the soapbox I'm going to get on today. But I 100% agree with that, and I think that that's a great idea to add that to our legislative platform. It's something that we can hopefully push for. And so there's no further discussion. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the approval of the 2020-2021 Uniform Statewide Assessment Calendar with district assessments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Still a no.
It passes 4-1 with Vice Chair Kennedy dissenting. We'll move forward. We are on to, let me see how it's worded. Appointment of the school board representative to the Children's Services Advisory Board. Yes, Reverend Golden.
Madam Chair, I move that the school board representative to the Children's Services Advisory Board be the chairperson of the school board or their designee.
I guess I was. All right, there's been a motion and a second. I guess I was hoping we could have a little bit of discussion before we got to that motion. Or their designee.
Yes.
Sure. So I appreciate that. If you don't mind, I asked for this item to be on the agenda. If I could just elaborate why it's here. Last November, when the board approved our committee's document that we always approve, Vice Chair Kennedy had expressed a desire to be part of this committee when my term was completed. My term will be completed September 30th. They would like the upcoming person to submit their application September 1st. So I wanted to bring this before the board so the board could consider having Mr. Kennedy serve as our board representative on the Children's Services Advisory Board since he expressed his desire for it last year.
Okay.
Vice Chair Kennedy?
Thanks. Yeah, Gina, that's, where I was when we last spoke about this, but the or designee is what got me on board with that, motion. And really, I'm still interested in it. I've followed CSAB, since I've been on the school board, and it's an interesting process, but I wanted to open this up to the other board members. Specifically, to be honest, I was thinking about Reverend Golden, because as the point that you made, and maybe you have no interest, but I at least want to, I don't want to just, take this and be like, hey, this is mine. I wanted to see if anybody else was interested. And I know Reverend Golden has worked a long time in these issues as the chair of the Centerstone Board. I know Centerstone is a recipient of CSAB money, so you're very knowledgeable and involved in the CSAB process. So I didn't want to just take it without talking to other board members who may also have an interest. And so that's what I wanted to find out, if specifically if Reverend Golden had any interest in the seat as well.
Do you see how he's trying to sign you up for that? Reverend Golden.
Thank you very much. What Reverend Golden has an interest in is what I've had an interest in since I've come on this board, that we try to move beyond the personalities of the individual members of the board and try to establish a methodology, a professional way in which we do things. That was why I made the motion that it is the chair or the chair's designee, which simply says that if you decide that you want Mr. Kennedy to be the representative to the chair, to the Children's Advisory Board, as the chair of the board, you get to do that. If Mr. Kennedy decides that he no longer wants to serve or that he's not able to serve, he gets to appoint whomever he would desire or whoever would accept it. But the idea of, well, you know, I don't want to do it, or I can't do it, and I think he ought to do it, and I think you, I'm just.
I do want to do it. I just wanted to offer it to the other board members also.
Well, but you see, it's not yours to offer, and I'm sorry, but that's exactly what I'm trying to get away from. It's not, where we are is asked to have a representative on this board. That's all they ask. It is within our sovereign authority to determine who that is and how that's determined. And I'm simply saying that the way we've determined our chair for the last 2 years, we have said 1-year terms for the chair. Now we're coming up with respect to these appointments. I have an issue with the Florida School Board Association. Dr. Hopes is the representative from this board by our vote. And I'm not able to, well, either him or Attorney Minor, and I'm the alternate. I'm not able to participate in that because I'm only the alternate. I get to participate when they are not present. So I want us to become more conscious in terms of the things that we are required to do as board members. Not because I have an interest. I have an interest in all of this stuff. I can't be everywhere and do it all. And I'm glad to hear that Mr. Kennedy is being transparent and forthright. He'd like to serve. And so instead of us making decisions based upon your term on the Children's Advisory Service Board, I'd rather have you make a decision as the chair of this board as to who our representative would be. And I think that's the prerogative of the chair. And especially since one of us has expressed a keen desire to do that. So that's how Reverend Golden feels. Not that that's going to make any difference. I hope it does, but that's where I am. We need to be trying to do the best that we can do and be the best that we can be. That's all. And I agree. I would, if the chair makes that recommendation, I'm going to support that. The chair and not because your term is up. When is their year up? September? Yeah. Well, you're the chair, and you can continue to serve until and unless you're the chair no longer, and then the next chair can say, "I'll serve," or "I will appoint somebody else to serve." That's the prerogative of the chair. That's what I'm trying to seek here.
We're going to have an audience that's quiet, please. Thank you. Hold on, Mr. Minor. I know that Dr. Hopes also has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, with respect to Reverend Golden, what we're trying to do, what I believe his motion is trying to do, is kind of rewrite how the board conducts its business with regards to these various appointments. I'm in full support of Mr. Kennedy taking on this role of all of us. He is the board member that is really closest to the students at all levels, and is really fully engaged in these areas. I think with regards to Reverend Golden's, you know, either motion or comments, I think there's a time and place for the board to discuss if we want to change the process that we go through. I happen to appreciate the process that we've been going through while I've been on the board of really just having an open, frank discussion with each other about, you know, interest and willingness to serve in different capacities. So I'm not sure what the status is of Reverend Golden's motion, but Mr. Kennedy's expressed a desire. The agenda item is to discuss and make an appointment, and I really don't think we should, in this meeting, move down the pathway of changing how we allocate our board member time to these various other responsibilities. So I'm in support of Mr. Kennedy taking on that role, and I, quite frankly, I really appreciate the chair's participating in this as long as I've been on the board. I think you served on the Children's Services Board, but I in full support of Mr. Kennedy, Madam Chair.
Mr. Minor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that the board approve Mr. Kennedy to serve on this board.
I think we already have a motion on the table.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to withdraw my second for the previous motion then, which will clean it up for this.
He's not withdrawing his motion. Let's see if there's a
I will
second.
withdraw the motion.
All right. Mr. Minor, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would. I'd like to move that Mr. Kennedy be appointed to this position.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second.
Who's going to appoint?
The board does,
Oh, I see. Okay.
as the board has done with all the other ones. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none.
When does this take effect?
The term would start September 30th.
So I think if I am approved, my first meeting would be the November meeting of the CSAB.
And there's an October retreat that they have every year. So it's like an all-day event where you, like,
What resort is that retreat at? Maybe I've changed my mind.
now when I say retreat, what I mean is you're in a room with people.
Well,
And
it's
you-
going to be on Zoom.
It's a sit and get, and they might get you sandwiches. So it's not, you're not going to massage with a pool view. I'm sorry about that. But they do have that in October every year where they talk about the goals for the CSAB and
Rubric.
the rubric, all the other stuff that kind of goes along with it, and they kind of rework the goals, although, anyway, they rework the goals, they work through their plan, it's just a good time for the whole board to come together and meet new members and all that stuff. So I imagine it probably will be through Zoom, but
Okay.
it's hard to say.
All right, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Oh, wait, Mr. Minor.
Now, after we dispose of this, I wanted to ask a question. Can we go ahead and call the question on this matter?
Do you want to call the question, or can we
I
just
will
vote?
call the question.
Okay, Mr. Minor has called the question. Is there a second?
Second.
On his motion to call the question? Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Minor's motion to call the question, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. So we are on to Mr. Minor's motion, which is to appoint Vice Chair Kennedy as our school board representative to the Children's Services Advisory Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, board members.
Mr. Minor, did you have something else you wanted to add now?
Yeah, I have a point of order. Could the chair help me and tell me what the vote was under miscellaneous consent of item 22?
I believe that was unanimous.
I guess I'm asking the clerk.
Mrs. Boyes, item 22, which was the HR document,
Approval of notice,
it was unanimous.
okay, approval to advertise a notice of public hearing.
Yes. That was consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving forward, we are now on to public comment. Vice Chair Kennedy.
All right, thanks very much, Madam Chair. Quick reminder, public education is not an open forum to discuss matters unrelated to education, to support or oppose candidates for public office, or to engage in commercial speech attempting to sell a service or product to the board or public. Public comment is not a forum to attack individual school system employees or board members. Any such complaint should be submitted in writing to the superintendent for appropriate handling. And finally, this is not a forum for addressing issues involving individual students. Again, those should be submitted to the superintendent for follow-up. Each speaker has 3 minutes to address the board. Please, when you come up to speak, please leave your mask on. Do not take your mask off when you come up. And if you have any handouts to present, you can give them to the agency clerk to your left and my right.
Mr. Kennedy, before you call names. I apologize.
Oh, what's up?
I wrote my note about Reverend Golden's item that he wanted to add,
Oh, I'm so, yeah.
and I wrote it on the back of my paper and not where I should have written it. So I really would like to go back to that. You've already read your spiel about public comment, so after we have this discussion, you can skip it and just start calling names.
Yes.
Reverend Golden, I do apologize. You asked for us to add an item so that we can discuss with the superintendent, direct the superintendent to include some sort of recognition for Mr. Christopher.
Yes.
And it was just a discussion item, I believe. So would you like to start us off?
Well, actually, I wanted to make the motion, and I guess we can discuss whether or not we're going to approve the motion, because I think it ought to be done.
Okay,
It may die for the lack of a second, but I would like to move that the School Board of Manatee County acknowledge the outstanding work of Mr. Bob Christopher in his leadership of the School Financial Oversight Committee.
Second.
okay, we've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And I apologize, Mr. Kennedy.
All right, we're off and running. Public comment is on. Mr. Nelson, you're up first. Mrs. Foreman, you are going to be next.
No, man, no. This is a commercial. One of the things is you all are educators. I want to talk about education. I'm a guy from Minnesota, 88 years old. And this is the book that's just published called Cast. Cast. It's also on Oprah Books Best Book Club. It's the #1 in the country. I've read it 3 times and reading the 4th. I was never so mad at education because the things that this deals with history, especially the United States, I never was aware of, or never taught, or my kids never taught. And so I'm appealing to you as educators to educate yourselves on this book called The Caste System. She looks at 3 countries, Germany, India, and the United States, called castes. It's like it's just amazing. The first time I read it, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. And it got madder and madder as I read. We had people from the, talk about the Holocaust, the Nazis. We got to remember those. One of the things that, why did Germany go into their problem of looking at Nordics in their white race? 1934, the Third Reichstag, how to institutionalize racism in the Third Reich. They began on asking how the Americans did it. Well, you look at them Nazism, all the atrocities they did. They're looking to us. Back in 1934, is how we deal with racism that they could start. And they did a lot of atrocities. The thing that I'd never heard of is all the atrocities we white people did, and we never heard of. That's nothing in history that I ever heard told for my kids. So I like to bring that awareness to you. And one of the things she deals with is a backlash. I'd like to read to it. Matter of fact, there was a guest editorial in the paper yesterday, you know. So the real question should be, if people were given the choice between democracy and whiteness, what would you choose? What would you choose? I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk to educators because you ought to read it and find out about real things in history, especially about the United States. One other point, in Germany, we lost the war.
Mr. Nelson, I would have let you finish that sentence, but I would have let you finish that sentence if you wanted to.
That lost the war. There isn't a statue of any general, including Rommel, in Germany. Not a one. When we fought the Civil War, how many statues do we have to the losers? Today.
Amen. Mrs. Foreman? And Mr. Gibolino, you're next.
Thank you. I'm Mary Foreman. Good evening, Board, Chair Messenger, Superintendent Saunders. When you look at the district's organization chart, the community is to whom this board is accountable. And that means the public is your boss. Look at how you're treating them. At the last board meeting on August 11th, people had to wait for the most part outside and weren't called on to speak until 10:30 at night. Teachers who had worked all day and had to go to school the next day waited 4.5 hours for the opportunity to inform you of significant problems going on at Manatee High. You weren't aware of them. What if they had given up and gone home? Do you think things would have improved? Every meeting, the vice chair calls out names of people who are signed up to speak during public comments, but they are no longer here. They've given up. How much important information and insight are you missing out on? At the emergency meeting on August 14th, general public comment was on the agenda, but the meeting was adjourned without ever calling that item. This evening, you are finally voting to approve minutes going back as far as August 4th. That means public comments that were submitted by email will not be published until August 26th at the earliest. That's 3 weeks later. In order to show public comments the respect that they are entitled to, these emails should be read aloud at board meetings, or at a minimum, published on the district's website the day after the meeting, not weeks later. I read one public comment where the writer was following up a previous email comment he had made because he hadn't received any acknowledgement. If you want to continue using this method, each board member, every one of you, should acknowledge the writer that he or she has read the email. If your goal is to stifle public input, you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Mrs. Foreman. Glenn, you're up. Mr. Jones, you're next, after Mr. Gibolino.
For the record, Glenn Gibolino, taxpayer, voter, citizen. So I've got a couple items here that I would like to put on the overhead projector. Do we have one? See, I have to agree with Mary that you marginalize public comment. You marginalize our ability to do a correct presentation, not only for you all, but for the audience here who gets cheated out of that presentation because you won't put up a $300 projector. You know, I was at the BOCC meeting today. We derailed the masks for religious institutions. They backed off on that. Also was Constitution Week. So we celebrated that. And part of the Constitution is to redress our public officials. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm redressing our public officials, and we have the ability to instruct our elected officials on what we want you to do. And I want you to put an overhead projector here. Now, when you impede my ability to do that, I guess I'm just going to impede your ability to continue a meeting. It is just an embarrassment that nobody in the last year has recommended an overhead projector. Cynthia, it's my understanding that you can do anything under $50,000. You could have put one in here. Probably need the board approval. It's just disrespectful. Mary, you're exactly right. They don't want to hear us. You know, I've got a lot of good information I wanted to talk to you about. You got contracts here that are certainly in disarray. You've got policies in place that keep items from the public. So I'll wait for that overhead. This is not going to get any easier down the road. I will be continually coming back, and the next time I be here, civil disobedience will be in order.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones?
I'll help you, Mr. Jimbo.
And then after Mr. Jones, Sean Sullivan will be our last comment.
Hey, greetings. And Mayor, you're absolutely correct. And Mr. Gimbalini, you're absolutely correct, but at least you're not arrested. They don't want to hear what we have to say, so they intentionally put things to the back of the meeting. Reverend Golden, I was a little harsh on you. I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself. Would you, it's for you, the public, would you tell me that I was lying on you last meeting when I said that you went into that church and deliberately slandered Mr. Hunley's name and told a bunch of lies on the LMA? Would you deny that right now? On your word, forget your school board member, your pastor, your man of God. That's above all of that. Tell me I was lying. Scott Holtz, you there? Scotty, tell these people how you go on television, just continue to lie, and tell these people how many times you've lied from that dais. You pop up for everything else and run your mouth. Tell these people how you continue to lie to the public. And Gina, you need to take him off the mic too, because he's doing the district a really disservice by being a spokesperson for the district. Cynthia Saunders, on your job, on your contract, would you tell the good people, the good citizens, that you've never misappropriated funds here, or you have no knowledge of? Can't answer, huh? If I was sitting up there and it wasn't true, I'd speak out in a minute. Charlie's seen a lot of this stuff. He's also said you guys don't always tell the truth. You deliberately put out misinformation to the public. And I'm with everybody else. We're going to do something about this, and you guys are falling and you don't even know it. And Gene, I'm going to give you a bye because on July 23rd, I honestly believe you didn't know. They just took advantage of you for the reasons that I pointed out before, you being young, not very skilled, not a deep resume, and they took advantage of you. And that lady right there, when it turns out, you're going to have a much different opinion of her. She's not going to be such a good friend to you because that lady betrayed you. And she betrayed everybody up here on this board. And you guys don't do your homework. You don't force her to do investigations. Why would you leave the person that is under investigations over investigations? Just like 10 little girls come from Mr. Smith's first grade class and say, hey, Mr. Smith touched me. And you send Mr. Smith back in to determine whether or not it gets investigated. Who does that? You do. That's what you're allowing right now. And you guys are going to get Erin Jackson in a whole bunch of trouble. I don't know if she knows that you have allowed her to not do investigations that incriminate her and incriminate these board members, and along with Mr. Hopes, she has pushed those investigations to the side to save herself, right in front of your face, Gina. You need to show some leadership, young lady, and you need to show it fast.
All right. Mr. Sullivan, Sean Sullivan?
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Good evening.
All right. So, I'm coming here on behalf of hundreds of parents. I've had the opportunity since the pandemic started to speak with a lot of respiratory specialists, doctors, people that work for OSHA about these mask mandates. And the mask mandates, guys, that you guys have put in place, I know you guys are in a tough predicament, and I appreciate the predicament everybody's in, right? But forcing our kids to wear these masks is unbelievable. Okay, it's absolutely unbelievable. And guys, we have to weigh, whenever we start sixth grade science, we start with a hypothesis. We don't do experiments to prove the hypothesis correct. We do experiments to prove the hypothesis wrong. And that's how we're taught from the beginning. Okay, the things we know about coronavirus, we know it is 0.012 of a micron. Okay, we know the surgical mask doesn't work. We know that a cloth mask doesn't work. All you guys are doing is, our kids are inhaling more carbon dioxide. You have kids with asthma. You have kids passing out in PE. Okay, you have kids all over the place, and who's gonna be responsible When the viral bacteria that gets on these masks, they're wearing the same mask all day. A surgeon in a 3-hour surgery will change masks 12 times in a 3-hour surgery in an optimal environment. A school is not an optimal environment. The air exchange is not the same, okay? It is not sterile, and you have my kid in the same mask all day long, and kids across the country. It is terrible, guys. You have to weigh the good with the bad. 1 in 3.5 million kids will have an adverse reaction, a serious reaction to coronavirus. 1 in 3.5 million. My kid has a better chance of getting hurt on the school bus than he does of catching coronavirus. A surgical mask, a cloth mask does nothing. An N95 mask only gets particles down to 0.3 to 0.8 of a micron. Look at the science. We're not looking at science. Okay? This is not about science, guys. And I have parents screaming to me because I've had the opportunity to talk to all these experts. Please speak for us. Because my child can't go back to school because he has asthma. And even though the doctor wrote him a note, the school is rejecting him into school because he can't wear a mask. Guys, you have to look at it scientifically. When kids start getting bacterial pneumonia, because every time we get this wet, we're breathing more in. Your blood can become toxic because of the carbon dioxide you're breathing in. Everybody in here is more tired than they usually are when they don't have masks on because you're creating hypoxia. It is insane, and we can't do this to our kids, guys. We cannot. I had the choice to send my kid to brick and mortar, to do online schooling, or to do half and half. If I made the choice to do brick and mortar school, it's my choice as the parent and a doctor and the child to decide what's best for my child, not you guys. If I choose to send him back and I want him to go without a mask, that's my choice. And the choice of the doctor and the choice of the child, not the choice of the school board.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. We are on to workshop item requests. Are there any workshop item requests? I think we had already talked about one about the Citizens Financial Oversight Committee. Yes, Vice Chair Kennedy.
Yeah, I was going to cover this in comments. And maybe there is no appetite for this on the board, but I know we have a workshop tomorrow with 2 items. Maybe we can figure this out tonight. But I'm just curious, as I alluded to earlier when we were doing, when we were talking about resignations related to the legal case. And I know there's a whole bunch of logistics involved here, but I'm just curious if we, as a board, should have a workshop to discuss any possible changes in the aftermath of the emergency order being struck down, and maybe there isn't. Maybe the board majority is happy with the way things are going, and we don't need to change anything. But I just wanted to put that as a workshop request, and maybe it's a 2-minute item where the board majority expresses that they're happy with the status quo. But that would be my request for a workshop item.
Okay. Is there any other workshop requests? Okay, then we'll move on to legal department update.
Madam Chair, it's Stephen Dye. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's my first virtual meeting. I was going to update the board on the status of the North Florida case, but obviously the board's been following it closely, so I don't see any point in doing that. So otherwise, I don't have any other report.
Thanks. Mr. Tottenbaum, you have nothing to add?
No, Madam Chair,
Thank you. Instructional update, Ms. Yost.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairman and board members. Good to see you this evening. The instructional update is that we've just completed our 7th day of school, and we truly have had a smooth opening back to school overall. We have faced many challenges as educators, administrators, and support staff. Operations and instructional staff have worked collaboratively to make certain that we were ready for the arrival of students, to make certain that we keep them safe and secure while instructional rigor is our paramount goal. So we have started off with 7 successful days. We will continue to move forward and meet the needs of each of our students. As they have returned, we were uncertain as to what type of trauma and social, emotional incidents may have been faced since we had not seen them for fourth quarter through, so from March forward. We have made certain that we have provided resources for our teachers so that we can evaluate social emotional support that might be needed for our students as we look at the entire child, the whole child, as we move forward for the 2020-21 school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Operations update?
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one item tonight. I want to talk about meals and e-learning Manatee. You know, students attending full-time e-learning Manatee have the opportunity to pick up breakfast and lunch meals for a week all at one time at the school they're enrolled in. These meals are available through drive-through pickup. It's on Monday. It's high schools from 8 to 8:30, middle school from 9:30 to 10, and then elementary from 8:30 to 9:30. This is important. We want to definitely get the information out. Parents can register online at manateeschools.net/curbside meal, or it's also on our website under departments, under food service. There's obviously a number of benefits to make this happen for our students, but we definitely want to have everybody who's hearing this to get the word out to any student who's doing e-learning so they can understand that this is available. So appreciate you giving me a few minutes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, one of the announcements I would like to make, and I kind of briefly mentioned it before the board meeting, but we will be finalizing an agreement with MCR Health to provide health care services to all of our students. For any family that does not have a primary care doctor and they choose to partner or utilize them through telehealth services. Around 90% of all cases can be screened and identified and diagnosed through telehealth. And I think this is really going to provide, especially during the year of COVID, it's going to provide a tremendous resource to parents at home. You know that MCR Health has already done over 25,000 COVID testing assignments already in Manatee County. So one of the great things is they can screen for symptoms. They can help with any type of medical diagnosis. But in addition to that, if they cannot provide a treatment opportunity through telehealth, they can definitely do referrals to other health specialists. We will not have any incurred expense through this partnership. It will all be taken care of through insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, or through a sliding scale of fee. In addition to that, and that's going to be rolling out October the 5th, so we'll be seeing that agreement come forth soon. They also will be assisting us with providing flu shots to all of our school sites for students that parents may choose to have their child with a flu shot. They will also provide vaccinations if anyone needs that. And if we ever do get a vaccination in the near future, they will also be a provider that will roll that out for COVID-19. I think this is going to be a tremendous service to the schools that or students that really need the service. And we're going to start the initial rollout with our Big Ten Title I elementary schools, and we will expand from there. So we will have a lot of information forthcoming, but all of that was kind of solidified today. So real excited about the agreement and all the support that we have with Patrick Carnegie and his team. We will also be having our grand opening for the Manatee Community Partnership School, which is at Manatee Elementary. That grand opening will be September the 10th to open up that clinic. And of course, they will be able to provide any of these services or health services direct from their clinic for that school, as well as Southeast High School. So a lot of great things coming in the terms of healthcare assistance for our students. I also think that it's important that we all, I know Ms. Yost talked about what a great rollout and safe rollout we've had, but we really owe a lot of gratitude and thanks to our teachers, our school-based administrators, our district staff. They have worked tirelessly to ensure that our students could come back, we could provide a safe environment, and give them as many normal occurrences if all possible during COVID-19. I know it's been challenging. I know Pat Barber has been a tremendous advocate working with the teachers and assisting and helping them as well. And I know it's been a lot of hard work. I know we've got a long school year left. We're just starting, but the teachers really have done a tremendous job with everything that they've been asked to do. And I know they will continue to serve our students. So I just want to thank them personally for all the efforts and all the work that they've given us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to mention two things. We, again, this year are having a Constitution essay contest for our high school seniors. It's a reminder to the social studies and the government teachers in our high schools that to have their students thinking about what the Constitution means to them, and preparing an essay to submit to their teachers and the school essay contest members, judges, and it culminates with the Bradenton Kiwanis Club sponsoring it. It may be a Zoom meeting, but it will be a celebration of the Constitution of the United States. Another reminder that we have some great people who have spent their lives, dedicated to this school district in various ways. And I consider it kind of a family, those who have been part of us. One was Ozell Ackerman, who passed away just a few days ago, and there was a service last weekend. His daughter teaches at Palmetto High School. It's a continuation of education, dedication, in a family. I remember Ozell being a present and sought after presence on school district committees, for his insight, his compassion, his love of people, and trying to make things work in this school district. And so my heart and prayers go out to his family, and thank you, for sharing him, with all of us. Thank you.
Dr. Hopes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would really like to just commend all of our employees, and it's with a sense of pride that we moved into opening schools on the 17th. We were one of the first of the larger districts. We were the first district in Tampa Bay, and it all came together because of all of the hard work and the dedication and the commitment from the board, the public, starting with the public. The effectiveness of our Mask Up Manatee coalition is seen in the rates, and the board rallying around with numerous workshops and working with the superintendent to devise a reopening plan that was really proven to be quite effective and a model. And the Department of Education asked the superintendent and I, or me, to conduct a webinar yesterday. And I don't know how many hundreds of people attended the webinar where we presented the school district of Manatee County's reopening plan, and we discussed some of what we had been learning in that first week. And it was well attended, and it showed well across the state how we could come together with the community, the board, the administration, our classroom educators and employees to come up with such a plan that proved to be successful to date. And so I want to commend my fellow board members. We made some very hard decisions, and I'm I'm comfortable that we made the right decisions, and I think it shows in these first 7 days. And I'll close with please, 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 parents, if your children are supposed to be quarantined, if your children are feeling ill, please don't send them to school. Don't send them to school. A lot of the small hiccups that we had were really people showing up to school that should not have been there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Reverend Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to add my thank you to the superintendent for the work that she and all of the other administrators have done to lower the risk that we are all exposed to as a consequence of this COVID virus. And I want to thank Mr. D'Amico, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, for the reports that he's giving every 2 weeks about the status within the school system. I have said that we have been unfairly criticized because schools have been out since March. And all of the voices that were raised about not starting them back compared what has happened since March to what they thought would happen after schools were reopened. And I'm happy, as I hope everyone is, that that has not been the case. The reports that we're getting is that first, the positivity rate in Manatee County continues to decline, but that the positivity rate with respect to the employees and the students and the people in the school system is lower than 5.2%. And I think that's a good thing. That says that we're on the right track in terms of trying to minimize the risk that you have coming to school. I can't do anything about the risk that you have going to the grocery store, or the risk that you have expose yourself going to wherever you go to work or wherever you go out to socialize. But I thank God that we have been able to minimize the risk to our children and to the employees of coming to school. Are there going to be exceptions that we have to deal with? Yes. Are there going to be problems that are outside of the normal expectations of a school, of coming to school? Yes. But we have risen to meet the challenge, and I want to thank you for that. On another note, one of the issues that arose in the primary election is the location of one of the polling places that served mostly minorities in East Bradenton. And I want to thank the superintendent for so generously allowing that polling place to be moved into the Francis Wakeland Support Center, which is a whole lot more accessible and a whole lot more amenable to the people most impacted by that polling place. And I want to thank her for cooperating with the Supervisor of Elections to bring about that particular change. And last but not least, I do want to thank, I want to acknowledge our chair and her victory in the primary election. Welcome back, and to Mr. Minor for being in a runoff for the November election. And I thank you all for the service you've given and the service that you will give as we go forward. Thank you.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Thank you. I just got a few items I'll get through as quick as I can. Dr. Hopes has already said it, but it was on my list of items to bring up too. But I know when we had some of it a public comment tonight, there's a lot of differing opinions on the health effects and the positive and negatives of masks, but clearly Mask Up Manatee is working because our numbers are dropping. In fact, the last 7 days, our 7-day average has gone from 6.0%, and it is slowly ticking down. And as of the update from yesterday, our 7-day average is at 4.3. So I'm of the school of thought that says masks work, and I think other countries and other locations have seen that too. Around back to the reopening for just a second, and everybody's already said it, and I will too. But there are some blips and hiccups around the district, but overall, there really are a ton of positive stories coming from people. We I think tend to not hear them. I've seen some of them, heard them, because as we all have been, we've been in schools the past week and a half. But one of the problematic areas I just want to touch on real quick and just bring it up as kind of food for thought, or like we're going to have to deal with this down the road, is that one thing that we told parents is that they can make a decision to switch modalities at the end of the first quarter. And let me just say straight off, I'm really thinking about secondary schools when I talk about this, because I think just based on my own visits and conversations, everything really seems to be going pretty well at elementary school. They don't really seem to be having too many problems. But the secondary scheduling does seem to be, we had a few emails today. We've had a few since we opened about classes and scheduling. But the reason I bring it up is because we said that we would let kids change modalities at the end of the first quarter. And so to me, I think that means that we're going to end up having to make another master schedule if we have mass movements between modalities. It kind of ties into, now that we're out from under the order, do we want to, this, I guess part of this is day-to-day operations, because now that we are out from under the order, there's no requirement for a reopening plan that has to be approved by the board. So I kind of see that coming down the road, because that could create a lot of issues if we're going to do a new master schedule at the end of the first quarter break. So Superintendent Saunders, I can talk to you after the meeting instead of hashing this out right now. But I just wanted to bring that to our attention, which ties into my earlier workshop item request about, are we going to change anything up based on the outcome of the decision yesterday. One thing real quick, and Dr. Hopes, I'm not sure if you're still there, but I think it was Sunday, Dr. Hopes was on, I think it was Bay News 9, but made a comment about employees being disciplined if they come to work while they're awaiting a test result. And sorry, I should probably talk to you offline about this, but that was completely news to me. And then finally, the last piece, and this is kind of about communication and things being news to me, is it's really a request for communication to the board and a request for transparency to the community, because we have had some cases at schools, and I think in fairness to the community and in fairness to our parents who need to make decisions about their children, when we're getting a notification, we seem to be getting one, and maybe I should check my spam folder, maybe I'm just not getting them, but the board would get notified when we had a case, and then that stopped happening. So by the end of last week, I was learning about cases through the newspaper and not through the district, which I don't think anybody thinks that is a good thing. So, but really, when we report, and I had a conversation, I guess we talked about this early last week, is that when there's a report, I think it would be helpful to the community to know how many cases there are on campus and how many students or employees were affected. And by affected, I mean, quote unquote, exposed by CDC guidelines. Because it's one thing if like 1 or 2 students are quote unquote exposed, but if there's 25 or more, I think that might change a parent's outlook on the school campus. So I think in fairness to the community, I think we as a district, and I don't know if the board has any appetite for this, I'm certainly not asking anything be done on my behalf, but I think we as a board should ask for that transparency of the district to include they're very basic numbers, and when I brought it up last week, it was presented to me that it was a HIPAA violation, but if you're just providing overall numbers and not individuals' health information, I don't see how using a number to just give that school community idea, those parents that may not know, an idea of what they're looking at. So board members, maybe nobody else cares, and this is just my soapbox, I don't know, but I just wanted to bring it up because I thought we could just be more transparent with the community. So I think that's all I had. Oh, one more thing real quick. And I will not use names because that would be a HIPAA violation, but we did have a district employee. It is certainly not known to be COVID, but circumstantially it certainly looks that way. This one is public and his family has talked publicly, so I don't think I've mentioned this one before, but Ramon Morales, who was a custodian at Manatee High, passed away over the summer. So, folks, please keep your mask on. Reverend Golden made the request, or maybe it was Dr. Hopes, I'm sorry, but if somebody in your family is ill, please stay home. If you have symptoms and you are waiting for a test, please stay home. We are off to a good start. Let's keep our masks up and let's be smart, and we will have no interruptions potentially this year. So sorry, Madam Chair, I know that was a lot, but had a lot to get off my chest. So thanks very much.
Sure. I actually, if it doesn't violate HIPAA, I agree with you. I think that should be posted somewhere for families to see. And I know, as a parent, if I saw an overwhelming number at my child's school, that might change my feelings about it. I don't know. So that would be a question of law. I can't answer that. I really just want to take time to just thank the teachers and the school support staff, the district staff, the principals. This was a major lift to make this all happen. My little girl has been loving school for the first week, and I know there's lots of other kids that are feeling the exact same way. So when you pick up your child and the first thing they say is, I was a scientist today and I did an experiment, and that's joy, that's joy in learning. And that's why I became a teacher. That's why I'm here, to have that joy in learning for our kids in Manatee County. That is why I'm here. So it's really nice to see that when you hear it from your own child. That makes me believe it's happening across the board. You mentioned schedules and talking about that. That is something I've talked to the superintendent about, is at that quarter mark, we're going to have, I think, a conversation about modalities, and really talk about in what way do we think is the best way to move forward after doing this. And that's one of the things that she has been open to, and I think she understands that, as working to develop plans and thoughts of ways to make all that happen. And I think there will be probably a time and a place where we have to have a workshop to really talk about the best ways to continue to move forward. So I think that that's all coming down the pike. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And with that, it is 7:58 p.m. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, Madam Chair.